Sometimes, the past doesn't stay buried, it waits. And when it finally resurfaces, it doesn't whisper, it screams. In 1980, an entire orphanage on the outskirts of a small town vanished overnight. Every staff member, every child, gone without a trace. For decades, the building stood abandoned, its windows boarded, its halls filled only with silence and dust. Until one summer afternoon, when a team of renovators broke through a locked door in the basement and found something that would finally reveal what happened inside St. Aurelia's home for children. That locked door answered questions no one could ever imagine. Before we begin, if you believe forgotten stories like this deserve to be told, please like this video, leave a comment, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Your support helps this channel keep uncovering the dark corners of history the world tried to forget. Now, let's return to 1980, to a place meant to protect children, but which became their tomb. St. Aurelia's home for children sat just beyond the tree line, overlooking the small coal town of Elmridge, Pennsylvania. Built in 1912, it had once been a mansion belonging to a steel baron's widow before being donated to the church. By 1980, the town's factories were closing, and Elmridge was a place people tried to leave. But the orphanage remained a constant, a tall red brick reminder of compassion amid decay. Sister Marianne Delcourt, the head nun, had run the orphanage for more than 20 years. To outsiders, she was a saint, silver-haired, soft-spoken, always seen walking children to Sunday service. But those who lived inside the walls saw a different side, a woman haunted by discipline, plagued by nightmares she often confessed in hushed whispers to the chapel's empty pews. Her staff included Mr. Arthur Caldwell, a widowed handyman who rarely spoke of his past, Nurse Helen Voss, who handled medicine and food supplies, and Miss Avery Linton, a 23-year-old volunteer teacher who had arrived only 6 months before everything ended. The children, 23 of them, came from across the state. Some were victims of the economic collapse, others abandoned or orphaned. There was Michael, 12, who kept a pet sparrow in a shoebox, Lucy, 10, who wrote letters to a mother she never met, and Tommy, 6, whose laughter could echo through the entire building. The townspeople saw their smiles at Sunday picnics and never suspected the shadows that lingered in their rooms. Because every night at St. Aurelia's, after lights out, something strange happened. The building would hum. Not electricity. It was a low vibration through the pipes and floorboards, as if something mechanical ran beneath the basement. The older children said it started after Sister Marianne began a protection ritual, claiming it kept sickness away after several children had fallen ill. Whatever she was doing down there, none of them lived to tell. On October 12, 1980, a thunderstorm rolled over Elmridge. It struck just after evening prayers. The power flickered, then failed entirely. Mr. Caldwell went down to the basement to check the fuse box. He never came back. Miss Avery later told her journal, found years later in the ruins, that the children huddled together in the dormitory, listening to the wind rattle the windows. Sister Marianne gathered candles and led them downstairs toward the chapel, telling them, "The angels will guard you tonight." That was the last anyone ever heard from them. The next morning, when the milkman came, the orphanage gates stood open. The bell tower rope swayed in the wind, though no one was there to ring it. When the police entered, they found breakfast half prepared, cereal bowls lined up, spoons placed neatly, milk souring on the counter. Every bed was made. Shoes were lined up in rows. But not a single soul remained. The only oddity was the smell, a sharp, chemical tang seeping from the lower halls. Officers described it as cleaning fluid mixed with copper. Dogs followed a scent to the forest's edge before stopping at a stream. No tracks continued on the other side. The town erupted in panic. For weeks, volunteers combed every field, every creek, every abandoned mine shaft. Nothing. A state task force concluded that it might have been a mass abduction, maybe cult-related, though no evidence supported it. Rumors spread that Sister Mary Ann had joined a secret religious order that demanded sacrifice for purity. Eventually, the case file was closed under the title Elmridge Disappearances. The building was sealed, its windows boarded, its doors chained. Children from nearby schools dared each other to climb the hill and peek through cracks. Some swore they heard humming. Others said they saw candlelight. By the late 1990s, locals called it the Hollow Home. In 2020, Elmridge was no longer a town, just a ghost of itself. The mines were gone, most houses empty. That summer, a development company bought the Orphanage property, planning to demolish it and build senior housing. Among the crew was Elias Grant, 37, a contractor known for restoring historical sites. He'd heard about St. Aurelia's his entire life. His father had been one of the search volunteers back in 1980. Elias didn't believe in ghosts, but from the moment he stepped inside, the air felt wrong. The smell of mildew mixed with something metallic. The walls seemed to breathe. And no matter how bright the floodlights shone, the corners of the halls stayed dark. During the first week, tools disappeared. A generator failed even after being replaced. Workers joked about the nun watching us. By week 3, half the crew quit. While inspecting the basement for structural issues, Elias noticed a welded metal panel along the west wall, thick steel, covered in plaster and paint. It wasn't marked on any blueprint. When he knocked, it sounded hollow. The foreman shrugged it off, probably a sealed maintenance shaft. But Elias felt something pulling him back to it, like unfinished business. That night, long after everyone left, he returned with a crowbar, hammer, and flashlight. It took nearly an hour to pry the metal loose. Behind it was a narrow stone staircase spiraling downward into darkness. The air that rushed out smelled like rust and bleach. He hesitated, then descended. At the bottom, his flashlight beam fell on a door of solid iron, bolted shut from the outside. Someone had wanted to keep whatever was in there from getting out. He unbolted it. The hinges screamed. Inside was a room about 20 feet wide, walls lined with peeling paint, ceiling damp with mold. In the center, 23 small wooden chairs sat arranged in a circle. Each one had a nameplate taped to the back: Lucy, Michael, Tommy, Emma. On the floor, chalk symbols formed a ring around a large drain. Faded candles still stood in wax puddles. Elias's flashlight trembled in his hand. On one wall, dozens of Polaroid photos hung from nails, every child smiling in front of the orphanage, their dates all the same: October 12, 1980. Then he saw the shelf, rows of cassette tapes, each labeled with a child's name. He grabbed one. On instinct, he took a photograph of the room with his phone and ran. At home that night, Elias borrowed an old cassette player from his father. The tape was labeled Lucy. At first, static. Then, a faint humming, the same sound survivors once described hearing through the floors. A woman's voice followed, trembling, whispering a prayer. "Forgive me, Lord." They said this would keep them safe from the sickness. Then came children crying, coughing, and a deep rhythmic sound like chanting mixed with mechanical whirring. Elias slammed the stop button. His hands were shaking. The next day, he reported everything to the authorities. Within 48 hours, the property swarmed with investigators. Forensic teams tore through the basement, cataloging every object. The smell Elias noticed turned out to be formalin, a preservation chemical used in medical labs. Traces of it soaked the floorboards. Under the drain, they found a hidden compartment filled with bone fragments, small, delicate, belonging to children. DNA later confirmed several matched those reported missing from St. Aurelia's. But there was more. In a niche of the wall, sealed behind a loose brick, were additional remains, adult bones, clutching a rusted rosary. Dental records identified them as Sister Marianne Delcourt. Scratched into the wall beside her were faint words in Latin and English. "They never left. I kept them safe." The investigation concluded that Sister Marianne had succumbed to a delusional breakdown, possibly triggered by guilt or isolation. Documents found in her office revealed she'd written letters to the diocese claiming a black wind had entered the children. Local hospitals had recently reported an outbreak of meningitis, and it's believed she convinced herself that death was salvation. But some details didn't fit. One police officer, off record, told a reporter that the chalk symbols weren't religious at all. They resembled alchemical sigils used for binding rituals. And on the tapes, there were moments where the chanting deepened into something inhuman, a voice that didn't match anyone present. The official report omitted these details. Elias couldn't sleep. Every night after the discovery, he heard humming in his house, faint, like a song through water. When he checked his phone, the photo he'd taken of the basement was gone. Deleted. Then, 3 weeks later, an envelope arrived at his doorstep with no return address. Inside was a single Polaroid photo, grainy, aged, edges burned. It showed the same basement room. But this time, the 23 chairs were empty, scattered across the floor. And in the center, by the drain, stood the faint outline of a small figure, child-sized, head tilted toward the camera. The timestamp printed on the photo read, July 14, 2020, the same week Elias had opened the door. He quit the project the next day. The developers demolished St. Aurelia's soon after, claiming structural instability. Yet workers reported strange issues, bulldozers stalling, power surges, and once, a child's voice through a radio playing on an empty frequency. When the final wall came down, a gust of cold air swept through the site, carrying a faint echo of laughter. No one looked back. Today, nothing remains of St. Aurelia's except a patch of uneven ground and a single surviving tree that once shaded the playground. Locals say birds never land on its branches. Every year, on October 12th, candles appear along the old driveway, 23 of them, perfectly spaced. No one knows who places them there. Elias moved away from Elmridge. In his last interview, he said he still dreams of the orphanage. In his dreams, the children aren't frightened, they're waiting. When asked if he believes Sister Marianne was evil, he paused. "I think she believed she was saving them," he said. "But maybe she opened something she couldn't close." And sometimes, when storms roll over the hill, lightning flashes just long enough to reveal outlines that shouldn't be there. Small figures holding hands, standing where the orphanage once was. If this story touched or unsettled you, please support the channel. Like this video, comment your thoughts below, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Your support helps keep these forgotten stories alive. Because the past never truly disappears. Sometimes, it just waits for someone to unlock that very door where the past is.